Well, good evening, everybody. As a preliminary matter, this is Kevin Calcutt, Chair of the Norfolk Select Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. CC Van Tine?
Present.
And for the first time, Anita Mecklenburg?
Thank you. Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Blythe Robinson?
I'm here.
Judith Lozardi?
Here.
And Hillary Cohen?
Here.
Thank you very much. This open meeting of the Norfolk Select Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all open meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. I'm going to skip the other 15 minutes because we've been listening to that for about 3 months now. I'm sure everybody gets the gist of it. Just please, if you are joining the meeting, please remain on mute. And if you are on video, please know that we can see you and it is being recorded, so it will be saved forever. Thank you. With that, Blythe, would you mind taking us through our agenda this evening?
Sure. First, we have public comment, followed by consideration to extend an interim restraining order for a dog owned by Melissa Mitchell in accordance with the town's general bylaws, and to consider ratifying the third action item is to consider ratifying the designation of the police chief to file a notice with the Attorney General's office regarding the postponement of town meeting that was held on June 27th, and then there are 3 warrants to be signed.
Very good, thank you. That'll bring us to our first item this evening. That is our public comment period. For anybody that is not familiar, if you are joining us tonight and you would like to share something with the board that falls under the scope of the select board or the town administrator, you are invited to speak for up to 3 minutes. And we'll be able to take your comments and follow up if appropriate. We are not able to engage as it is not an agenda item, but you are able to ask questions or post things for us to be able to get back to you on a later date. So with that being said, do we have anybody who is interested in sharing in public comment tonight? If you are, please use the raise hand function. You can find that by clicking on participants on the bottom toolbar. I am not seeing any hands raised. If you are having trouble finding the raise hand function, you can wave furiously at your camera and then that will do the same. I am seeing no furious waving either, so we can move on to our next agenda item this evening. Please consider the extension of an interim restraining order for a dog owned by Miss Melissa Mitchell in accordance with the town's general bylaws, Article 13, Section 3. Blythe, a little bit of background, please.
Yes, so on June 13th, there was a child bitten by a dog on Boardman Street, and the purpose of our meeting tonight is to consider whether or not the board should extend a restraining order that was issued, a temporary restraining order that was issued by the animal control officer. It's a little bit interesting that where our bylaws intersect with state law, which changed in 2012, our bylaws allow for the animal control officer to issue a restraining order if someone either makes a complaint or she deems an animal to be a nuisance. And she can give you a little bit more background about that. But it's important to note that this is not a hearing. This is simply whether or not to consider extending that. We did receive a written complaint from the family of the victim. It's in your packet. And I understand from talking with the animal control officer, there is some history with this animal. So at the appropriate point in the meeting, I would like to talk with you about amending the motion that you have in front of you, because as I mentioned, there is state law on hearings, and if one is requested, then there's a process the board needs to follow to give the owner notice, schedule a hearing, take testimony, and decide whether a dog is a nuisance or a dangerous dog. So we don't want to go down that road tonight. We want to consider perhaps a limited extension of the order to perhaps allow that process to take place.
Thank you, Blythe. Hillary, did you want to give us a little bit of background into the incident and your recommendation? You're on mute, watch out.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a very brief background because time is of the essence. So as Blythe mentioned, there was an incident just pretty recently with this dog, but I do want to back up to July 2017. In that situation, I was contacted by the Norfolk Police Department to contact Sarah Durand of Boardman Street. And there was an altercation back on that date that both parties I spoke with, and they both agreed to what had happened. In this instance, the Mitchell's dog, Annabelle, had gone onto the property of the Durands, and their dog had been bitten. And so in that situation, I contacted the animal inspector for a quarantine, for a 10-day quarantine. And it was a written warning, citation number 2336 for biting and unlicensed dog. And everything has been quiet since that time. It was mentioned in that report that there was a previous incident to that, but it was never reported to me. That was a situation where the Durand's dog was loose and went over to the Mitchell property, and there was an incident there. But again, that was not reported to me. And was not known to me in any timely manner, so that information was stale from the previous. The newest incident was reported on June 13th, and it was Annabelle, the same dog. Dog was on its own property and on a runner. And there was a dog bite situation with a juvenile that lives at 94 Boardman Street. And as you can see in your packet, there is a lot of emails from the Beachkovsky Durand family about the injuries associated with that. My reason for asking for an extension would be because I've placed 2 calls, and I think the Mitchells are doing everything that they're trying to get accomplished with their dog trainer. I have placed 2 phone calls with the dog trainer and 1 Facebook message. I did hear back after the first phone call from the dog trainer. It was a voicemail. And, you know, obviously they're very busy. And he called at a late hour of the night in my work voicemail. So I left a second voicemail saying that he could call my office phone or my cell phone, so that whatever would be more convenient, because I do want to know what the plan is with the training for this dog. And that way we can have a better picture as to which way we should go forward, whether it does go to a hearing or if this can be resolved short of a hearing. I'm not sure yet. I'm just basically waiting on a big piece of the puzzle as far as the plan to go forward with their trainer.
Thank you, Hillary. At this time, I'll ask if Cece or Anita, if you have any questions for Hillary about the incident or prospective next steps. Starting with Cece.
So just briefly, what I'm hearing is, because, at least to a degree, because you're still playing phone tag with the trainer, for lack of a more elegant phraseology, this isn't ready to be determined beyond a brief extension.
Correct.
That's all. That's all I have.
Anita, any questions? You're on mute.
I don't think I have any questions at this time.
Thank you. Hillary, the only thing I'll ask is, Blythe had mentioned in the beginning that there was a disparity between our local bylaw as it relates to this process and the state bylaw. Can you just talk about what the difference is there briefly?
So prior to 2012, we had a bylaw that does bring up if I receive a written complaint or if I'm made aware of an animal that could pose a public safety issue, that I can take the steps for interim period. And the way our bylaw is written for the second half, back then the select board could impose it permanent. They could vacate it. In the past, we've also done voluntary restraining orders from the select board. I just would like to see more information from the trainer before getting to a point where we end up at a hearing, which may give this dog a label for the dog's existence in the Commonwealth, no matter what jurisdiction it ends up in. If we can find a way to resolve this without having to go to a hearing, that would be great, but I'm still missing some puzzle pieces, and that's why I brought this forward to Blythe to bring to you.
Thanks, Hillary. And Blythe, in your discussions with town council, it's your collective assumption that the board is able to enact this extension for a set period of time so that we are able to resolve these open-ended items as it pertains to this case. Is that right?
His recommendation is to allow a brief extension so that the injured party, the family of the injured party, can make a written request for the hearing, and the trainer has time to weigh in, and everyone can prepare for that process to take place. His recommendation was that it shouldn't be too long so that it's onerous, but not too short that anyone can't prepare. His recommendation was 30 days. And the meeting is scheduled for July 14th. So that possibly might be a date that could work to do this.
Understood. Thank you. And Hillary, if you could please just fill us in. If the board were not to take action to extend tonight because of the perceived conflict between state and local bylaw, what would then be the outcome? Would we have to vacate the restraining order? Can you talk to us about what would happen in that situation?
So if you decided not to act on it, yes, the order would vacate. You know, that is an option that the board can discuss and decide how you see fit.
But that is not your recommendation.
I would like to, just for the public safety and also I would like to get this final puzzle piece. I would love to speak with the trainer because I would love to get the totality of the circumstances so that I can make a greater decision. Even if it does go to a hearing, if the dog trainer gives me a set plan, it would certainly change my recommendation going forward for a hearing. You know, I think with the trainer and with Melissa Mitchell's letter that I emailed to the board today, I think great efforts are being proposed, but I just want to talk with the trainer, and that's been my holdup.
Understood. And what would be impacted by the board not taking up the extension and your ability to do that? Is there anything that would be holding that back outside of the restraining order itself? Is there anything procedural that is impacted?
As far as what? Being able to talk to the trainer?
Yep.
No, I think it's just the willingness of and being able to actually talk with the trainer. That's been the biggest pitfall in getting all the information to make a recommendation if we did end up at a dangerous dog hearing.
Understood. Okay, I'll stop grilling you now. Thank you, Hillary.
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure, go right ahead.
So before we get to, a hearing on dangerous or nuisance, I like to have as much facts in both sides' court to make the best recommendation. So that's why I'm kind of stuck where I'm at right now.
Understood.
If I could add one more thing, Kevin.
Sure.
Just that in order to make sure the hearing process is preserved, it's probably best that we not entertain any input tonight from either the owner or the family, that everyone have a chance to prepare for that meeting if it's going to be requested. This is not a scheduled hearing tonight, so I just want to, town council was recommended that we just consider, the board just consider a limited extension.
Understood. Thank you. With the recommendation from town council, I'll pass it to the board one more time for any questions or comments related to the proposed resolution. CC, I'm seeing a head shake. Does that mean no comments?
That means no further comments from me, yes.
Understood. And Anita, anything from you?
And so just to clarify, what I think that I'm understanding is that we're considering the option of just doing a temporary continuation of the restraint until we can do the legwork to have a hearing. Is that what I'm understanding?
If a hearing is even warranted at that point, I believe that Hillary is exploring some avenues that may result in no hearing occurring down the road. But I think at this point, what she's asking for is an extension to the restraining order so that she could line that up and, come out with a definitive path forward, whether that be hearing or not.
And so there's a possibility that we could extend the restraining order and then work would happen on Hillary's end, and then it would just, the extension would just end, and then that would be the end?
I do believe it would come back to us at some point.
That's what I'm wondering. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the family of the victim still has the right to request the hearing. Whether the hearing ended in some type of an outcome about what happened to the dog or not is to be determined. But that doesn't, just because we get more input from a trainer doesn't mean they can't request one anyway.
Any other questions, Anita?
No.
Okay, with that, I would move that the board vote to extend the restraining order issued by the animal control officer for the dog named Annabelle, owned by Miss Melissa Mitchell, for a period of 30 days.
Second.
Hearing a second, do I hear any further discussion? I'm hearing none. We'll take a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
CC Van Tine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
It is a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Hillary. Much appreciated. And we do hope that this can be resolved in the next 30 days.
Thank you.
Our next item this evening is to please consider ratifying the designation of the police chief to file notice with the Attorney General's office regarding the postponement of the annual town meeting date to June 27th. Blythe, additional background, please.
Yes, so this moderator has always had some authority to change the day of town meeting for various reasons, but in the situation with COVID-19, the state amended the law slightly to require that besides a certification by the moderator, that the town also needed to have either a public safety official or public health official send a notice of the declaration with the moderator's note to the Attorney General's office. We were caught up in a timing issue where the decision to change the date of town meeting was made a week ago, and the board hadn't had a meeting in order to act to know that it needed to do this. So this is a little bit of cleanup paperwork, if you will. I wasn't necessarily able to reach the chair of the Board of Health, Tom Gilbert. So I asked Police Chief Chuck Stone to sign that letter on the board's behalf and send it in, which happened, I think, Tuesday last week. So this is simply to vote to officially designate him to allow him to have signed that letter.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will open it up to the board for any questions or comments. We'll start with Anita this time.
I do not have any questions.
Cece, any questions or comments?
No, none.
All right, with that, I would move that the board ratify the designation of the police chief to file notice with the Attorney General's office regarding the postponement of the annual town meeting date to June 27th. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a second, do I hear any other further discussion? I'm hearing none, so we'll take a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
CC Van Tyne, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next item tonight is a couple of warrants that require signing, and it looks like I am the lucky recipient. So with that, I would move that the board approve the warrants dated 6/23/2020 in the amount of $717,279, dated 6/23/2020 in the amount of $230.37, and dated 6/23/2020 in the amount of $65,635.46. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a second. Any further discussion? I am hearing none. We'll take a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
CC Van Tyne, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Well, that does it for our shortened agenda this evening. Blythe, anything else for the group?
Nope. I just noticed that there's one person with their hand raised on the list. I don't know if you want to take that up.
Sure. Ms. Mitchell, go right ahead.
Hi. I would have really liked a chance to speak about the restraining order, because for the most important part, I did speak with the animal control officer that came when Annabelle got into the incident with the other dog. And it was written and reported that their dog was on my property when she got bit. Their dog had come onto my property, and my dog instinctively chased her, and that's how that happened. It wasn't like, you know, my dog just went on their property and bit their dog. The dog was on my property. That's when it happened. It was one single nip. It wasn't like my dog viciously attacked their dog, you know. And it was the same thing with their kid. And I was very upset. Their child is probably one of the most wonderful kids I have ever met. He is intelligent. He's well-spoken. He's a great kid. It broke my heart. But she's a rescue dog, and when kids run, she kind of freaks out. And my kids were in the yard, and, you know, but she's also an English bulldog that has breathing issues. And I tried to take her for a walk the other night with the muzzle, because I'm following what I'm supposed to be following. And I had to
Ms.
stop.
Mitchell, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm very sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I understand your perspective, and I actually feel very badly for the whole situation, everybody involved as a whole. But I want to be very careful that we don't cross into the territory of listening to testimony as it would pertain to a potential hearing. What we did tonight was merely extend the order so that we'd be able to do a little bit more groundwork to explore all potential outcomes that may not even result in a hearing or further testimony or whatnot. But it is important that we don't go down this road on this call, because that's not what was on the agenda, and we could face open meeting law violations.
That's fair. My question then is, in accordance to your bylaws on Norfolk and state bylaws, in order for there to be a order to extend a restrainment order, there has to be a meeting first determining whether the dog is a nuisance or a dangerous dog. And that never happened. So technically, according to your laws, after the 14 days, which is today, if that meeting has not occurred, then this order is vacated. So I don't understand how, if I wasn't allowed to have a hearing to defend my dog, how we're allowed to put an order in place.
This was the issue that we had talked about before, where there was a distinct conflict between what is listed in state law and what we have in our local bylaws. However, in conference with our town council, we got a recommendation for us to be able to take the action that we did tonight that we felt wasn't going to necessarily take any definitive action as it pertained to the case. This merely gave us the time to be able to determine more facts and hopefully come to a better resolution at the end of the road. But Blythe, if you'd like to add anything to that, that was my understanding of the guidance that we received.
That's correct, Kevin. The only thing that the board needs to receive is the report from the animal control officer. It doesn't actually specifically say hearing. We want to make sure that everyone's rights are preserved by setting this for a short period so that we can go forward to that if needed.
And I was to understand that in order for there to be any kind of anything that happened, it was to whoever had to make a report to the animal control officer. And at that point, she has the option to put the restraining order on my dog, which she did. But in order to go further than that, a hearing has to be set to determine whether the dog is a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog. If that meeting or hearing did not take place, then within that 14 days, then the order is vacated. That's in the Norfolk bylaws, not just, I mean, the state bylaws, go with that, but that is actually in the Norfolk bylaws.
I'm sorry, I would respectfully disagree.
So this is why we go and we confer with our town council so we can get guidance on situations like this. So we will report back to him your contention with the position, and then we'll be happy to follow up to identify if there is any further discussion required around the action that we took earlier this evening. But from my perspective, I see this as an extension to be able to get us to a better resolution at the end. I don't think anybody wanted to prematurely make any determination as to a more definitive and permanent path forward without giving everybody the opportunity to get as much as we can together. So that's why we took the action that we did. So like I said, we'll follow up with town council to see if there's any other additional opinions or perspectives that you wish to share, but that is the guidance that we received and why we took the action we did. Blythe, do you have anything else to add this evening?
Not, thank you.
Cece, anything else to add this evening?
No.
Anita, anything else to add?
Nothing.
Very good. Well, in that case, the select board's next meeting is on, Blythe, feel free to jump in, the 13th?
14th.
14th of July, so we will see everybody then. I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a second. Any further discussion? We're hearing none. We'll do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Cece Van Tine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Thank you very much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.